Welcome back to the Inbetweenovers podcast, where your host of today's play. I'm Taran.
And I'm Ishaan.
Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel.
So we continue with the Super 8 action today with India versus Zimbabwe. Obviously, when this matchup came to be a few weeks ago, not too much headlines. India versus Zimbabwe, would have looked like a walk in the park. However, Zimbabwe started off the tournament extremely great form. Bennett, of course, playing the knock of his life in a few of the games as well. And then India obviously losing their first Super 8 match. So it's a little bit of a game on knife's edge from India's perspective. They needed the win in order to at least have a chance to go into the next round. India was able to secure a win. It was a fairly decisive win with some changes on their side. They had to make some changes, but danger is still not clear for India. They still have to win a virtual knockout against West Indies on Saturday. So a lot to play for, but this game was very important for India's really goal to win the World Cup. So, Taran, what were your thoughts on today's match?
Let's not forget that India would have played Australia in this game. So right away, they need to send a thank you letter to Australia for not qualifying for this round. Otherwise, this would have been a very tough game for India to win. And at the end of the day, they got to play Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe played really well to get to this point, but their true colors are showing in terms of experience. Their players definitely don't. They have a lot of talent, but they don't have a lot of experience at this level, and it's showing with some of the mistakes that they made in this game and in the previous game against West Indies as well. It ended up being a very easy win for India, who were under a lot of pressure. Let's not downplay that. People were talking that India could potentially be out of the World Cup losing just one game. That's how significant it became of them losing against South Africa. So this was a must-win game, not only a must-win game, but a must-win game by a big margin. Of course, they were helped out by West Indies losing to South Africa. So I think that took some of the pressure off. At that point, all they needed to make sure was win the game. But yeah, they got off to a great start, put up a big score, and I feel they still should have won by a bigger margin. They may have given a bit too many runs, but I don't think that run rate is going to affect as much as long as the India West Indies game actually happens.
Yeah, so again, we'll talk about that later on, but definitely some risk there. But to your point, India was able to get off to a great start. Obviously, Zimbabwe won the toss, put India up to bat, and now obviously there was some changes. And of course, Gigi making changes, again, changes that no one is seeing straight from left field. But I think I was pretty lukewarm to these changes. What are your thoughts?
At first, I was like, I don't know if we needed that change, but maybe instead of going bottom heavy, they decided to go top heavy. And so they took out Rinku Singh and put in Sanju at the top, and now everybody else started moving lower down. So I guess it's still bottom heavy. I don't know. But I felt that the better batsmen moved lower down now, if that makes sense. Because we had Tilak Varma coming at 6, which in essence lengthened the batting, even though it's the same amount of batters, right? So I didn't mind the change. I thought Sanju Samson had something to prove, especially because they were playing in Chennai. And I don't know if you saw the toss, but Surya mentioned the two changes, and he mentioned Sanju's name, and the crowd erupted. They absolutely erupted. So I don't know if that had something to play into his selection. He's also a CSK boy now, home ground. It looked like it was destiny for him. He started off really well, almost scored a quarter century. Yes, I'm calling that a quarter century. And he looked good for at least a 50 and got mistimed the ball. But I like the selection and gave Ishan Kishan a break behind the stumps too because he took the gloves.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with everything you said. But it was a shame that he got out in the fashion he does. Kind of like he always gets out with like, hitting on the offside, whatever that angle is. But yeah, mistimed the ball. It's unfortunate because he did look great. I think his first two sixes looked incredible. He looked in great touch. And I think it was important to have a left-right combination, at least for Abhishek Sharma. Sometimes the bowlers get a little bit too antsy. And I'm not sure if you noticed this again. This could just be a small point, but they did not open with an off spinner, and I think is because Sanju Samson was starting. I don't know what are your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I'm glad you mentioned that. I almost forgot about that. So I have a feeling that had a big reason as to why Sanju came up at the top because they could have easily played him one down, but I think he came up at the top because of oppositions playing off spinners in the first over, and now with a right-hander in there was tougher. I think Zimbabwe should have still done it, or at least done it in a fashion that if Abhishek Sharma was on strike for the next over, bring an off spinner on, right? I think I would have still played that card, but Zimbabwe didn't. So I guess you could say that the plan worked in changing up the openers. And Zimbabwe also left out their other spinner in Graham Kramer. They played majority fast bowlers today, which was an interesting tactical change by Zimbabwe. And we can dive into Zimbabwe's tactics because uh, I think they should have batted first. I think they messed up there as well. They won the toss and decided to bowl. I felt they should have batted, given the fact that India didn't chase well in the last game, and Zimbabwe batted well enough where if they put that score of 180 batting first, who knows what would have happened.
Exactly, exactly. And obviously that run rate was always still on the mind of the Indian players as well. So I totally, totally agree what you mean. Um, and yeah, but I guess before we go into like the news, the Zimbabwean tactics, quick shout out to India's batters. Really, all batters hitting at a strike rate above 155. I think lowest was 158 for some fairly decent runs. You had people make runs in the double digits, some big explosives at the bottom there with Pandya and Verma playing extremely great finishing knocks, like exceptionally, exceptionally well. It's Pandya and Tilak Verma both. But I think again we will talk about this as well. But the Zimbabwean bowlers, I think 5 out of their bowlers went over 10 runs and over. So it was definitely not the best from their end.
Yeah, the batters did amazingly well, and again, they were helped by the bowling. The bowling wasn't that good, let's be honest. There were a lot of bad balls in there. The fielding didn't help Zimbabwe either. They dropped catches. I can think of at least two that were drop catches, maybe more, and it was just sloppy. It was, as the Aussies call it, international twos. Shout out Great Cricket Podcast, but that's what it felt like. You just felt India were a class above and Zimbabwe were a class below. The bowling was fodder really for the Indians on this kind of a wicket. No one really posed a threat at all. And you know what? We can just sprinkle the Zimbabwe tactical errors as we talk because I think they shouldn't have left out their leg spinner, Graham Kramer. I think they should have kept him in because the attack felt pretty one-dimensional. Brian Bennett and Ryan Burrow are part-time spinners. Sikandar Raza was the only spinner, and you had four fast bowlers. It just felt very one-dimensional. It seemed like they brought in Maposa because he has the ability to bowl slower balls, but he doesn't have the experience, and that showed. He bowled 2 overs for 40, which is not an easy day out if you're going at 20 and over. And I felt playing a leg spinner would have added some difference or variation in the attack. And Graham Kramer has a lot of experience. He's in his 40s, he's over 20 years of experience in the game. And I think that would have helped Zimbabwe through the middle overs.
Yeah, and I think one comment I heard from comms, which is always important, and I guess looking at the pitch as well, obviously, is that I think history had shown that spinners who bowl at a slighter pace do extremely well on this wicket. And I think that's what was missing from Zimbabwe in particular, especially if you look at some history like that. Again, I don't know how the facts on that, but I heard that on comms, and I do always hear about that about some pitches, especially in Chennai, for example. So it was interesting to hear, especially from that end. And to your point, the bowling again just did not help the Zimbabwe team at all, especially with Indian team batters. You have basically Pandya coming in at 5 and, him able to do that damage without Shivam Dubey or even Akshar Patel coming in to bat. That shows that India's batting, even with these changes, is still fairly deep. And could Shivam Dubey play a quasi finisher role? I trust him to. I really do.
This lineup, this batting lineup, actually looks stronger than the one with Rinku Singh in. And this is no shade against Rinku Singh, and he's an amazing batter. But you have Tilak Varma coming in at 6 now, and Shivam Dubey at 7, and Akshar Patel at 8. That's a staggering batting lineup. And so we may see this going forward in the tournament. I feel like they may stick to this template because of, again, the fact that there's a right-hander at the top, splits up the lefties. So we may continue to see this banner. It looks amazing, and on their day, they clearly can put up big scores as we saw today. So let's see how it continues.
Yeah, and very quickly before we talk about the second innings, if you look at some of the scores, obviously you have the Pandya 50 and the Abhishek Sharma 50, which we again very well deserved from Abhishek Sharma. We know how of a bad run he's had in this tournament so far. But if you look at other scores, some decent 30s, some decent 24s, but those are quick, which in T20 we know you need. You need to maximize the number of runs per ball you get. So obviously you didn't get the great 88 runs that, for example, Ishan Kishan had, or the century or whatever. But you had enough runs quickly for India to put up a very significant score still of 256.
Yeah, that's the definition of batting as a team, right? Everyone's contributing, you're not relying on one person. And India and South Africa right now, and you can probably add England to it on a lesser context. I would say South Africa more. They have complete batting lineups where everyone is in fairly decent form and everyone can contribute in different ways. South Africa also have a lot of players, a lot of batters that can change gears like the Indian batsman can, where they can bat in the fifth gear like India did today, or if needed, they can bring the gears down. I'm talking every single batter in this Indian lineup can play all the gears. I don't know about Abhishek Sharma. I think
One
he is
dimension.
predominantly a one dimension. He is a six hitter. He's a bona fide six hitter. That's what he is. Okay, but if you look at everyone, maybe Ishan Kishan to a slight extent, but Sanju Samson, Sky, Hardik Pandya, Tilak Varma, they can change gears. Shivam Dubey showed that he can change gears, although again, you could say he's a six hitter. Akshar Patel, we've seen him play all kinds of innings. So I think having that versatility helps. And right now, India and South Africa are the two batting lineups that have that versatility.
I definitely agree. So India with a score above 250, my eyes, I thought that was enough. But one thing on my mind was, what should India be targeting to win by? At least before the inning started, in my mind, I thought at least 100. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say they probably may have changed plans after finding out that West Indies lost the game against South Africa, because that probably eased some of the pressure because the net run rate wouldn't have. So the net run rate still matters, but it only matters if the game gets washed out against West Indies, which there is a chance that it can happen, and if it does, I don't think India winning by 72 runs in this game is the reason why they are out. You know what I mean? If they get out that way. So, and I feel, and again, we're not math experts here, but I feel even if they won by 100 runs, they'd still be at a lower net run rate than West Indies right now.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know the math behind that, but I will be curious to know what that number would be where they are
Mm.
where they got slightly higher than West Indies. And I agree with you. The off chance of rain or a washout is very unlikely, but it's still there, right? So I think
Yeah.
it's definitely. I don't think everyone's completely nerve free right now.
Yeah, definitely not nerve free. The pressure is definitely still there, but just not as much as it would have been had South Africa lost to West Indies. That would have made it even more challenging because you're looking at the Zimbabwe team and you're looking at the South African team. There's no way Zimbabwe is beating South Africa. Again, anything can happen in the game of cricket, but on paper, South Africa doesn't seem like they're going to lose to Zimbabwe.
No way, no way. I totally agree.
So India come out with the ball defending a massive target, and you felt that the writing was on the wall, and this was going to be India or easy win for India. It ended up being an easy win, but they had to battle to get wickets. The power play, they went wicketless. Bumrah got smacked a couple times, and during the middle overs as well, Zimbabwe were able to put partnerships together. They they were 144 for two by the 16th over. So definitely a very low chance of winning. But the fact that they got to 144 for two out of 16 overs said a lot to me. And that was mainly thanks to Brian Bennett.
Oh, 100%. I know we'll talk about the, 144 for 2, but they got through the power play, I believe, without a wicket loss, and that's a very big feat to have, especially with Arshdeep Singh bowling and Bumrah bowling as well. But again, very, very good feat from Zimbabwe. And I think you talked about, what some may consider right now as the informed batter of the tournament, Brian Bennett. Taran, what is Brian Bennett's strike rate, please? Sorry, average. Oh my God, I'm getting confused. What is his average this tournament?
His average is pretty much the strike rate of what Abhishek Sharma's strike rate is. Brian Bennett is averaging 277 in this tournament. Brian Bennett has batted in 5 innings and he's only got out once. He has a not out against Oman. He has a not out against Australia, where he won the game for Zimbabwe. He has a not out against Sri Lanka, where he won the game for Zimbabwe. And the only time he got out was against West Indies, where he scored 5 runs. And here he is playing against Bumrah, Varun Chakravarti, Arshdeep Singh, Akshar Patel, and Hardik Pandya, and a little bit of Shivam Dube, but ended up scoring 97 runs. Not out.
And he's only 22.
And he's only 22. And you got to give him more flowers. He has a test match 100 at Lords against England.
Wow. And we were talking about this off air. It was a little disappointing that he was not able to secure a century. I think that would just been the icing on the cake, especially from an individual perspective. I know it's a team sport, but him batting and getting to 97, is just you have to get 100.
Yeah, I think in T20 when you're in the 90s, it's tough. It's tough because it's a format where scoring 100, let's be honest, is rare from the perspective of cricket in general, like the other versus the other formats. Like in the other
Nine
formats,
available balls. Yeah.
right, right. There's just more opportunity to score 100, whereas in T20, not so much. So when you're stranded in the 90s in a T20 game, it sucks. I can feel for the batters, and he definitely deserved 100. Like, a story to tell your grandkids, right? Scoring 100 against Bumrah, the world number one, one or the greatest bowler of all time. Like that is something that you'd love to be able to share with your grandkids.
Oh, 100%. So yeah, obviously him being the silver lining of that Zimbabwe attack, great 97, fairly quick 97 as well. But again, the total was a little too high for them, obviously. And I think wickets kept falling at, obviously not as frequent intervals as India wanted, at intervals enough where, by the tail end of the match, you kind of knew where it was going.
Yeah, you kind of felt that even after the power play, there was just too much for Zimbabwe to do. I don't think they had the depth. I don't think they have the depth in their batting to score that high a run rate. Maybe again you could have the one player that may stand up and do something special, and they did, and it still wasn't enough, right? So it just spoke to the fact that India just had, in my opinion, 50 to 60 runs too many. I think if it was a 200-ish or a 190-ish total, Zimbabwe would have been in with a shout, and maybe the way they played would have got really, really, really close to that. But their sloppy fielding and some poor bowling extras as well, extra balls, that led to India scoring 40, 50 runs.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know India's bowlers probably knew that the game was in the bag, and so that is why, for example, Shivam Dube, took a few overs for himself. But comments on the bowlers, obviously, I think Arshdeep Singh, again, exceptional player in the T20 format. He's, we're a fan of him on the pod. Great 3 wickets from him and a very great economy as well of 6. Arshdeep Singh is a bona fide T20 player, and I really hope that Indian team groom him for the other formats as well. But, it did seem like Bumrah, Hardik, Pandya obviously maybe mentally took the day off. But, those wickets were enough from Arshdeep as well as some of the spinners to really put a pause on New Zealand. I mean, sorry, on Zimbabwe.
A little disappointed with the spinners. I think they could have done a little more. Although the pitch was a very good pitch, so maybe we gotta cut them some slack there because the batters were able to. I don't think the ball was spinning as much as it has on some of the other pitches, so the batters were able to play through the line quite easily, and you saw that against Varun and Akshar. Nice to see Akshar back though. I think there's no way you drop him. No matter how he performs, he has the ability to do something with the ball, something with the bat. And between him and Washi, he is the better player. He is the better all-rounder. Regardless of matchups, I'm playing Akshar Patel. So I was happy to see him in the attack. But yeah, overall, I think India did well with the ball in terms of not letting Zimbabwe scare them. I think I think they felt that this game was in the bag, having scored 250.
Yeah, no, exactly that, exactly that. So now, obviously, India playing a virtual knockout on Sunday against West Indies. As we said before, West Indies will bring the vibes for sure. And we know the T20 format, anything can happen in this format. One good innings, one good spell, and the game could flip. How do you see India tackling that game? And do you see any further changes, or do you see India reverting back to the lineups that we saw maybe earlier on in the tournament?
I was going to check where they are playing the game. I think my dad was saying that they're playing at Eden Gardens. I just wanted to make sure that is the case. Yes, they are playing at Eden Gardens, KKR's home ground. If it is like the pitches that they dish out at the IPL, it's going to be a six fest. And Varun Chakravarti is going to be a handful because that's his home ground as well in the IPL. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And I have a feeling it's going to be a battle of the West Indies batters against the Indian spinners, just because West Indies batters are prone to get out to the spinners and not pick the spinners or the googlies and the variations. And so I have a feeling that that's what it may come down to. India needs to make inroads into the West Indies top order right away. Shimron Hetmeyer and Shea Hope, in my opinion, are West Indies' best batsmen. If one of them get off to a flyer, India's in trouble in terms of whether they're defending a target or trying to restrict West Indies to a target. So it'll be interesting to see how that game goes. And then from a batting standpoint, I feel the West Indies bowling is not as strong as India's bowling or as strong as South Africa's. And I have a feeling India's batting will be able to score runs at a healthy pace and put up a big target or chase down anything.
Yep, no, exactly that. I know you mentioned Rinku Singh, sorry, Varun Chakravarti, but also on the West Indies squad, they have a lot of players who have played in the IPL. Rovman Powell, KKR player, so obviously his home ground as well. So we'll see how one, the reception he gets, and second, how well he performs, because we also know right after this is the IPL as well.
And I'm willing to bet and put money on the fact that the minute Roman Powell steps out to wicket to bat, Varun Chakravarti is coming into the attack. Because Rovman Powell starting against spin, he is not the best. He finds it very challenging to pick the spinners, pick the variations, and no matter which spinner, I'm pretty sure it'll be Varun, but if India do choose to play Kuldeep Yadav for whatever reason, he's coming on against Roman Powell too. And I just feel that there may be a scenario where India may choose an extra spinner, but I think there has to be something in the wicket to make that decision. And if there is, it'll actually work against West Indies because I don't think they are as good as playing against spin as they are faster bowlers.
No, I totally, totally agree. I know you mentioned some changes or some potential changes from the spinning department for India, but if I were to look at on the opposite side, India's batting department, I don't know if I would make any changes from the match today. I know there will be some motivation to bring in Rinku Singh, or at least some thoughts about Rinku Singh, but I kind of liked how things were shaping up today.
Yeah, the lineup looks good with Tilak Varma at 6. I still like him at 3, but it seems like he has, as I said, the ability to switch gears. And so he came in at 6. He did really well at 6. And as I mentioned at the start of the pod, India's batting lengthened somehow with the same amount of batters. Just because you put Sanju at the top, everyone went one level below, and it made a difference in today's game. So I feel like, yeah, I feel like there's no reason to change that batting lineup, and it'll be a tough batting lineup to contain.
Explosive, explosive everywhere, right? So very, very. I'm really glad to see this team coming along, and I think the matchup on Sunday will be an explosive matchup. It's basically a virtual knockout.
Yeah, it's a virtual knockout, and I think India needed to have that loss against South Africa. They say sometimes you need to have the loss that you need to have in order to win the tournament, because it's not every tournament that you can win unbeaten. I know
Yeah.
India did it the last time, but it's extremely hard to repeat that over again. And so I actually, you didn't want it in the circumstance that it happened, but I think India will have already learned a lot from that loss, and I think it'll help them, and it'll give the younger players some experience in playing under pressure as well. They now have to win every single game to win the tournament. They cannot lose now. And so it is going to be interesting how they continue this form and how they show up to every game going forward.
Yeah, and I know we talked about this earlier. Potentially Sky's last tournament as captain, so we know it is motivation for him to finish off strong. And to your point, the team is young; they want to make an impact, especially after some of the old heads have sort of transitioned off. So it's a great platform for them to sort of make their name in T20 cricketing lore.
India versus West Indies, it's going to be a big one. We can't wait. Until then, that stumps.